Welcome to the Make Your Statement podcast. My name's Aaron Woodward. I'm the Head of Business Development for FASTSIGNS Manchester and Bolton, and I'll be taking over the podcast from our Managing Director, Richard Wedgwood. The subject of today's podcast is the ever-changing landscape in the print, signage and visual communications sector. I'm joined today by Neil McCarthy from Pyramid Display Materials. Neil is a seasoned professional with over 35 years experience in the industry, and he has been at the forefront of the industry's innovation over the years. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Aaron.
Neil, could you share with us some insights into the early days of your career and how the sign and print industry has sort of evolved and progressed over the years?
Yeah, sure. Well, I left school in 1978, which is an awful long time ago, and my first job was to be an apprentice in the screen print trade. So my first actual job was printing, for people of a certain age, Sabutio cloths, believe it or not.
Wow.
And then I graduated upwards to printing the glasses on fruit machines. So that's how I started. And then from there was one day really when we had a problem with the screen print side of it, and one of the sales guys came in from an ink company, and I was watching this guy and I'd seen him drive up in his company car, and he stood there next to me talking to our works manager saying, has he done this, has he done that, is he squeegeed the right angle? And I thought, he was talking straight through me. I looked at him and thought, I could do that. So cut a long story short, my next job was a junior salesperson. So I started with a company called Graphic and Display, and at the time the industry was very pigeonholed. So at the time you had screen printers, you had sign makers, and there was no such thing as wide format digital. Anything that you needed to be large and colourful was basically processed through a photo lab, through wet chemistry.
Okay.
So that was how the industry was split in those days. Then, around about 1990, we decided that we can give this a go. So we started our own business then at Paragon Display Materials. And we were quite specialist in those days, that we concentrated primarily on the photo labs, but we did deal with sign makers. But just at that time, the photo labs were getting into more the digital technology. So it was the first time that customers could actually order a one-off poster. Yeah. So it was only printing onto paper and you couldn't use them outside. So that was quite pivotal really for that side of it. We grew that business. We ended up selling that business to a company called Robert Horn in 96. We then grew that business again for a couple of years, but didn't particularly get on with the larger corporate side of it. So we decided to do it all again. Hence, we formed Pyramid Display Materials in 2002. We grew that business again, and that culminated in a couple of years ago, we sold that business to a big American outfit called Grimco, who have 70 branches across the US and Canada. And coincidentally, Grimco, they're a big supplier to the FASTSIGNS group in the States. And for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, they've won Vendor of the Year. So that brings us to where I am today.
Excellent. It sounds like it's been quite a journey then, Neil.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster.
Excellent. So with the sign and display industry constantly evolving, how have you seen new technologies and process evolve the industry?
Yeah, I think overall technology, as we go along in our trade, it increases speed and quality. Every new machine comes out, should be faster and should be better quality. And maybe the price goes down as sort of things increase with it. I mean, when I first started selling on the road, again, the revolution was to get what you class as a letter cutting machine. So the very first plotters that were available that you put for vinyl materials. Yeah, so it was a revolution then, that it went from hand cutting letters out of self-adhesive
with templates
and things, to actually having a computer program that you could pick a font, press a button, and the machine would cut the letters out, which you'd then put them onto your application tape and put them onto a sign.
Yeah, I'm not sure how our production staff here would feel about having to hand cut letters these days. It's like you almost take the machinery that we've got now for granted. You know, we've got the plotter which cuts the vinyl, but then we've also got the sort of CNC zund machine as well, which could cut the rigid substrates. But yeah, I guess back in the day, everything was done by hand, and I guess even before then, a lot of it was hand drawn and handwritten, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then like I say, the next one was the very first inkjet printing machines came out. And it's quite interesting the way that came out from, there was always, for sort of the engineering market and architectural, there was always the plotters there that would print the would actually draw the plans. And then somebody figured out that you could actually get the plans drawn in colours. And I think that was the first start really of plotters and inkjet printers becoming able to produce full-on graphics. And it went from there. So the next big revolution really was the invention of the solvent inkjet printers, because that meant that now, rather than just being able to produce indoor posters and exhibition panels, you could print onto self-adhesives that could go outside. And again, that changed everything, and that opened up full colour graphics for signage.
Excellent.
So,
brilliant.
And then again, just moving along, the next one was the flatbed inkjet printers that took it from being able to print on self-adhesive and then stick those self-adhesives to a rigid Foamex type board. The fact you could print directly onto a rigid board again was a game changer. UV and latex came along, so again that meant they were quicker. The latex printers were sort of revolutionised the car wrap market in the fact that, you know, you didn't have to wait for the solvent printers to gas out before you laminated, so it just printed everything up. And I suppose that brings us to the present day, where a lot of the big retail printers now are buying these EFI Dozomi machines, which can produce 1,100 printed boards an hour.
Wow.
And retail for about 1.5 million.
Wow.
So, and again, that's been such a game changer that a couple of the bigger retail printers bought these machines, and now the knock-on effect is that everyone else is having to buy one to keep up and to be competitive. Exactly. So again, that's the old one. And I suppose as well, the market's changed now. There's not those old pigeonholes of screen printers and sign makers. The industry we class now as sign and display.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we regard ourselves as a sort of full service signage manufacturer, you know, so we can offer any sort of product to any customer that has a branding or a signage requirement basically now. So so that's great. So obviously, having seen so much development and change within the industry, Neil, how do you feel that the sort of end user's perception of signage has changed during that period?
Yeah, I think now there's a lot more options. There's a lot more colours available in self-adhesives. I suppose one of the biggest changes as well, if we look at, say, if you go to a standard retail store or a supermarket, back in the days before the digital print side of it, everything was run on long-run screen print runs. So it just wasn't cost effective if you weren't printing 500, 600 sort of point of sale posters. I think with digital, that then brought into that retailers could advertise different sorts of products in different areas. So you didn't need to have, say, a baked bean promotion in Glasgow if your baked bean sales were good. And likewise in London, if you wanted a promotion on Kellogg's cornflakes, you could just do that for London. So I think that's how digital changed a lot of signage and advertising.
Much more accessible for people.
A lot more accessible.
On quicker turnarounds.
Yeah, a lot more personalised. Setup times. Again, you went from the screen printing in the old days, like I used to do, was you'd get your screen, you'd have to set up, you'd have to work it out, you'd do so many prints, you'd have to make the screen in the first place and then get rid of it, then clean everything off. Whereas now it literally is a computer program that sends it via a RIP to the printer and the print comes out, sort of culminating in these latest high-speed ones being able to print over 1,000 boards an hour, which is unreal from the old days.
And do you think that it's sort of like the old school methods have completely died out now, or do you still see instances of people opting to use a screen print process as opposed to a digital process? And why would that be beneficial in this day and age?
A few years ago, we went through that thing where the runs were maybe a few hundred, were half and half, where if you went over 300, would it be more cost effective to print it than digitally print it? But as the machines have speeded up, screen print really, apart from some industrial applications, has basically disappeared. Okay. So, we have a few of our big customers that, they just have screen print lines that are basically mothballed and waiting for somebody to come and cash the scrap in for the metal on it. So.
Okay. And how would you say that sort of people's skill sets have changed over the years as well then? Because it sounds to me like when you first started out, there was a lot more sort of hands-on requirements and maybe a higher skill level involved, whereas these days it would appear that there is the emphasis of the skill set will be maybe more on the design team, because a lot of the physical manufacture is now machine driven and automated.
Yeah, so I can remember the days where on the sign making side it was all about sort of bending hot acrylic round sort of nails hammered into a bench to get your letters, whereas that's been replaced by the computerized routing side of it. I think LED lightings again changed everything, as opposed to the old days when it was hot neon literally being bent. And now obviously that is all done with the latest LED lighting. So yeah, lots has changed, and I think everything's more based on, like you said, the design side of it, and the competency of the operators really being able to get the right finish on the materials they're printing on.
So Neil, can you tell me more about the role that you currently undertake for Pyramid Displays, what that encompasses, and the vision of the company, given the new sort of economics that are involved in our industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my official title is Head of Sales and Marketing, so the sales team reporting to me, I sort of head up the marketing function for Pyramid. But over the years, that sort of evolved. So I'm quite actively involved in some of the trade associations for the industry.
Okay, was that like the ISA, the BGSA, those sort of people?
Yeah, I mean, the main one I work with is Popeye, the point of purchase industry.
Okay, yeah.
We have a sustainability council that I sit on with, not just sort of printers and people that produce things, also a lot of the bigger brands sit on that council, so the likes of Procter & Gamble and Kellogg's and Boots and these sort of people, which is great really, because
that's really interesting actually.
Yeah, because you get to hear what the brands want, going down to what the printers can produce, down to people like ourselves that are distributors who sort of go out there and source the different materials to print and fabricate.
Well, if you ever speak with any direct buyers at either of those organisations, Neil, you know exactly where to point them in terms of the physical manufacture.
Yeah, I'll put a word in, Aaron, don't you worry.
Thank you very much.
So, and the other big side of my role at Pyramid is developing new products. So over the years, we've developed a large range of more environmentally friendly products. So that means sort of really working with the market and the brands to see what applications they want to produce, then working with our manufacturers to see what we can actually produce, and then actually bringing that to market and being able to stock it and deliver it to people like yourselves to actually produce the signage.
Brilliant. So what sort of materials would they be then? Would they be rigid substrate? Would they be paper-based?
Yeah, everything from self-adhesives to paper substrates. One good example, actually, quite a few years ago now, the people who advertise on the side of buses and and the back of buses, they were looking to move away from the self-adhesive PVC they were using, again, just more from an environmental perspective, and they came to us and said, look, we're looking to replace these panels, what could you do? I said, well, what's your ideal? They said, well, we'd like a waterproof cardboard. And straight away your obvious thing is, well, how can you have a waterproof cardboard? So we went to one of our mill manufacturers, told them the story, half expecting them to turn around and say, well, bit pie in the sky, that's never going to happen. And they actually said, we already produce one.
Wow.
So we said, well, we've never heard of it. They said, well, go into any supermarket, have a look in the fish section, and what's the fish that's packed up on? It's on either gold or silver waterproof cardboard.
Wow.
So we actually took that idea, worked with the mills, and then produced a single-sided display board that would last anything between 3 and 6 months,
Excellent.
which is as long as a bus side advertising campaign. Brought that to market, and that has been, again, a stable product for maybe 7 or 8 years.
Brilliant.
So that's just an example of trying to work with manufacturers to solve an application problem.
Very innovative. I mean, there'll be so many different applications for that type of material as well. So, when you think of sort of temporary campaigns like site hoardings on building sites, typically they're up for 3 to 6 months depending on the size of the project. So that would be another great application for a product like that.
Yeah, well, we've actually developed that. The next couple of products that we'll launch that was such a specific advert for bus advertising, because it only needed to be single-sided because it went into frames.
Yeah.
But our manufacturers that are Preston Paper and Board, literally 20 minutes up the road, we've developed that idea to produce a double-sided product now. So again, as you said, perfect for short-term signage, replacement for, say, some of the plastic materials that do the covers that go on bollards on retail parks.
Yes, yeah.
And the good thing is we show our customers these ones, and straight away they find applications for these new sort of products.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can help with that as well, Neil.
Yeah.
So why do you feel that the manufacturing mill didn't reach out to their distributors about that product, Neil?
No, again, they were just sort of tunnel vision into, we make that product for a certain market, and never realised there was an application within the sign and display market until we arrived.
So what was that market that they were originally making for?
Pure packaging.
Just
as a packaging product.
Okay.
And they made graphic products and packaging products.
And never tied the two together.
But never tied it together. And it was quite a unique application to start with.
Yes.
But now that is a product that, like I say, we'll develop, and there's lots of different derivatives of that waterproof product that we're working on to bring to market this year.
Brilliant, good. So Pyramid is known for its unique approach to the sign and display sector. How do you guys differentiate yourselves from your competitors?
Yeah, I think our biggest differentiator going forward is how we'll utilise the technology for the good of our customers. Mm-hmm. So our big project this year is that we're migrating all Pyramid systems onto the same systems that Grimco operate in the States. So that's really going to speed up order processing, picking, conversion, delivery and invoicing. So we're trying to make everything a lot easier and a lot more seamless. And really, we want to take the mundane out of our staff's day.
Yes.
So anything we can automate, we will automate. And that leaves our salespeople more time to talk to our customers, introduce them to some of the great new products that we've been developing and bringing to market, rather than panicking. There's another call coming in, just asking what time the delivery is going to be. Yeah. So all the automation will change that. And we've got the same happening with our web store. So we've developed a web store, and it's probably got to as far as it can go on the existing platform. We'll migrate that over to Grimco's platform, and again, that will be a lot more seamless experience. We're sort of aiming for this whole Amazon experience for the customers. Customers will be able to track where the deliveries are, what time the delivery would be, all these sort of things. And we're just trying to take away the mundane phone call to say, do you know what time my delivery is going to be on the truck?
Yeah.
So it just gives everybody, because I think when you, especially when we sold the business to Grimco and all our existing staff were hearing, well, they're going to invest a lot more in the website of it, the natural reaction is, well, why do they need salespeople? Yeah. And it's completely the opposite, is that we're actually investing in more salespeople, more external people, and we just want to give them more time to do the job, which is selling, not some of the other tasks that you can get bogged down with.
I think that's fantastic innovation, because even as recently as this morning, I have called a supplier and asked them what time my delivery is coming. So that will really sort of change the way that people operate their businesses, really.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, we'll just continue going forward, just developing products as we've always had, and either that's a request from the market to develop a particular product, or just any of our people just seeing something and thinking, well, great, yeah, that's another application that nobody's thought of before.
Okay, Neil, so as a leading figure within our industry, what trends do you see developing over the course of the next 12, 24 months?
Yeah, I think, as we mentioned previously, technology will speed up fabrication and printing. I think that's just ongoing, really. From a product perspective, the biggest thing we're noticing now is that there's this huge move away from plastic products to fibrous products. Mm-hmm. So even though we have been promoting alternatives to PVC, like polypropylene type products, at the end of the day, the public see plastic as plastic. And the more we can develop fibrous products, the better, really, and the more the public will perceive these as more environmentally friendly. But most importantly, you can be 100% sure that these fibrous products will actually get recycled.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of the plastic products, even if they are easily recyclable, is down to whether the actual end user will invest in that recycling.
Yes, exactly. So, well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? Because even some of the plastic products that we do use these days, they are recyclable. It's just having access to the facility who can recycle it properly, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And whereas the fibrous products, every retailer, every business has a paper and board recycling stream. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things to move that is that 3A Composites, who are one of the biggest plastics manufacturers for our industry, if you like, these guys make Kappa boards, Dibond, Foamex, Foamalite. They've just purchased a fibrous-based company that we actually distributed for anyway before they bought them, called Swedboard. Okay. And this is the honeycomb type board that we see growing. So for a large sign and display manufacturer to buy a fibrous company says an awful lot about the way the market's going.
Yeah, agreed. So, as we just discussed, Neil, there does seem to be much more of a demand coming in for sustainable signage solutions now. Where do you see the sort of biggest demand for that coming from in terms of a sector and or an area, and what do you think is the main motivation behind that demand?
I think this is all being driven by the larger brands and their sustainability policies. Mm-hmm. So, the likes of a Kellogg's or a Coca-Cola or those type of worldwide brands are issuing statements saying they're working towards a more sustainable business. There's a lot of talk about businesses working to net zero, and I think that's filtering down into the fact that these brands are looking at more at the signage products, what type of products are being used, and that then is filtering down to the manufacturers now having to actually look at the way they manufacture. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors on this side of it, and one of the biggest problems is, we'll get a contact off a client just saying, oh, we've had one of our customers on and he's asking for the carbon footprint of a sheet of foam PVC. Well, it's completely impossible to come up with that, because where do you start? Where do you finish? Do you start at granules that make the original one? Is it when it's delivered to a distributor like us? Is it when it's installed on site? So without any actual government legislation to draw up these sort of things, it's quite impossible to do.
And obviously we know that sustainable options are going to be in much higher demand over the coming sort of months, years. What other sort of products are, including sustainable options, do you think that as a signage professional we should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, the thicker fibrous products that we're developing now, within the next few months, we'll be actually launching a fibrous version of sounds weird, but a foam PVC. Right. But that is a thick 5mm version of a product that can be used internally. We're now working on a waterproof version externally, and that would be the game changer, really. That recently one of the major retailers moved all the 5mm foam PVC to a 5mm fibrous product. Excellent. And again, it's just having that sort of 100% that this product will be recycled, because especially with the PVC products, one of my mantras is that the recycling companies that are out there, they're not particularly there to save the world. They're businesses, and if they don't make a profit actually picking up products and recycling it and selling it back into the market, they won't do it.
Yeah.
But that's been the big shift to the fibrous products, that we definitely know that it will end up being recycled.
Okay, and do you think we'll ever see a thicker material than a 5mm come out of this fibrous product? Because we sell quite a lot of 10mm form PVC in our business.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever get to that stage that we'll have a material as thick as that, or thicker potentially?
Well, the biggest, probably the replacement we've looked at for the thicker boards is the honeycomb boards, the Svedboard type products. Yeah. So we see that as a major replacement. And for these honeycomb products that have the brown core, so we first launched that product probably 10 years ago, and the first reaction from the clients was,
it's brown.
It's brown. Have you not got a plastic edging strip to cover it up?
Yes.
Whereas now it's brown, it looks natural. The public perception is this is a fibrous-based product as opposed to a plastic.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
So yeah, I think we can get up to about 26mm in some of the honeycomb boards now.
Excellent.
So
that's great. Brilliant. Besides your work at Pyramid, Neil, you're also known as a trainer and a mentor. Can you share some insights into your experiences within these roles?
Yeah, sure. Well, I did actually work as a consultant with my own business when I left Robert Horn, because I was under certain non-competes that I had to literally stay out of the industry in a competitive nature from that, but it didn't stop me working within the industry. And that's when I started to develop sign and display training courses. So that was something that, again, I found the best way to do that was a mix of theory and practical hands-on. So there's nothing worse than a full day's training session on products where it's literally death by PowerPoint and just looking at slides. To actually, I used to take, in the mornings I'd do a lot of theory, and then in the afternoons I'd actually take them to a working sign maker who then would show people round, let them get involved in weeding vinyls. At the time, there was a fantastic sort of neon bending section of it that everything just sort of clicked with people. So I would always say with the training, the practical hands-on side of it. I mean, I love what Sam Armstrong's doing at the moment with the Make It Happen side of it, that, again, that's the practical side compared with that.
So, I've been on Sam's courses actually, and I would agree, you know, the mixture of the classroom based and the workshop based definitely makes it more appealing. And obviously you get a mix of people, don't you? You get people who learn audibly, you get people who learn visually, but then you get those kinesthetic hands-on people that if they're not touching and feeling, it doesn't necessarily sink in. So I completely agree with you on that. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's probably it's. I mean, we do it with any new starters. As soon as we can get them into a customer and basically on the shop floor, seeing the things happen, it really does stick in there.
It does,
so,
absolutely. Good. Yeah. So Neil, what insights or advice would you give to any newcomers or entrepreneurs who are looking to enter this industry?
Yeah, I think really don't concern yourself too much with coming into this industry from another industry or with a different skill set. I think if you're bright and willing to learn and work hard, you can really do well in this industry. And it's a very interesting industry that it moves so quickly with technology. You've got the graphical and the art side of it that, you know, you're basically producing nice things to look at. And Grimco have a great saying actually that they tell us when we're looking at employing people, if you find bright people, get them on the bus, but worry about where they're going to sit later, which I think is great that, you know, that's giving a lot of the people we've took on in the last 12 months are younger people, are bright people, they're willing to learn, and we can actually then show them in our way, and, you know, they're not bringing any baggage with them, and they become really our best salespeople, and they grow within the business.
Okay, so given your exposure and your role within the industry, what new trends or new products do you think that we might see coming into play over the course of the next few years?
I mean, we're seeing some new market sectors developing really that are not traditional markets. They've basically come out of nowhere really. So we're finding we're selling more and more products into the architectural market. So various new self-adhesives with different finishes going for interior design. Even again, self-adhesives for cladding the outside of buildings.
Yeah.
Avery Dennison, one of our big suppliers, they've launched a new what they class as facade.
Facade film, like an architectural...
An architectural film that will transform a building from maybe a mundane grey to a red or an orange or one of the set colours. So again, that's a new market for us. And again, the home market that, you know, our clients selling more to the general public than to the bit, you know, more of rather than the typical business to business relationships, actually trading with the general public.
Business
and
to consumer, right?
so business to consumer. This is encompassing now bespoke wallpapers that, you know, you can go on to a website, you can literally design your own things. The great thing with digital technology is that you can produce one roll of bespoke wallpaper now and send that out to a client. Same with fabrics, people producing their own cushions that they've designed. And again, right down to kitchen and table wraps, furniture wraps, with all these new different sorts of self-adhesives that are coming out now with all the different wood finishes or metallic finishes or these type of things. So our market really does seem to developing into lots of new areas.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting times for the industry. It really is. And like you say, it never stands still, does it? You know, and you're probably the best person to explain that, considering the length of time that you've worked in the industry and, you know, where things were when you first started compared to where they are now. It's a completely different world, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's more exciting, it's more interesting, so long may it continue.
Absolutely, agreed. It's been great having you in with us, Neil, discussing your valuable insights and experiences.
Yeah, it's been great, really enjoyed it.
For those interested in learning more about what Pyramid Display can offer, or those who want to pick up on anything that we've discussed today with yourself, Neil, where can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, best thing to contact me directly is through my LinkedIn account. So either message me on that and I'll get back to you with any queries, or if you visit Pyramid's web store, which is www.pyramid-display.co.uk. There's rafts of information on there, but there's also lots of ways where you can make contact with us through that. So.
Brilliant. Excellent. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast, make sure you like, follow or subscribe wherever you normally listen to your podcasts. You can watch the full video on YouTube and keep your eyes peeled for the next episode, which will be coming to you shortly. Thank you.